Hey guys, it's Miss Fiala. I just want to go over today's math lesson with you. Today is Friday, 4/17. When you open up the attachment, you're going to have your FSA countdown page here that you need to complete. And then the worksheet for the lesson for today, which today's lesson is on adding fractions with denominators of 10 and 100. And if you look at the FSA page, all of these questions are on adding fractions with denominators of 10 and 100, or finding an equivalent fraction, which we have done before. We did that lesson earlier this week, okay? So if you have any other questions about the FSA countdown page, privately message me on Edmodo, and I can help you out a little further, okay? You also have the answer key that was sent in an attachment to your parents, so when you're done, you can check your work to see if you got them correct, okay? So I'm going to go over our lesson for today, adding fractions with denominators of 10 and 100. So I'm going to turn this around so you can see my board. Okay. Alrighty. So we have done equivalent fractions and we've done comparing fractions this week already. So now we're going to add fractions with denominators of 10 and 100. And what that would look like is something like this. Okay, now I know we talked about earlier, when we add fractions, they have to have the same denominator to be able to add them. Okay, so we cannot add these like this. Your answer should not be something like this. That is not correct. Your answer should not be something like this. That is also not correct. So what I did here was I added my numerators and I kept the denominator as 100. And in this one, I added my numerators and then added my denominators. When we add fractions, we never add the denominators. We only add the numerators. So what I have to do here is I have to make them have the same denominator. Kind of like how I had to do that to compare the fractions, I'm going to do the same thing here. So when I look at this, I can change this fraction to make it have a denominator of 100. I need to make an equivalent fraction for 3/10. So I can multiply 10 times 10 to get a denominator of 100. I can then multiply 3 times 10, because whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Remember, we're multiplying by a whole, so it's got to be 10 over 10, okay? So if I do 3 times 10, I get 30, and if I do 10 times 10, I get 100. So now I'm adding 30 hundredths plus 42 hundredths. Now I have to add 42 plus 30, and that equals 72 hundredths. And that is your answer, okay? You need to make them have the same denominator. And really, we're always going to change that 10 to 100, okay? So another example is we could have 7/10 plus 13 hundredths. Now again, when we add our fractions with denominators of 10 and 100, we have to have them have the same denominator. So again, I need to change my 7/10. I need to make an equivalent fraction so it has a denominator of 100. To make an equivalent fraction, we can multiply. So we're going to multiply. What times 10 gives you 100? It's always going to be 10. So now I'm going to multiply 7 times 10. So now I get 70 over 100 plus 13 over 100. And that equals 83 hundredths. And that is my answer, okay? I know it seems really simple when we're doing this, but a lot of times we forget this and we make those mistakes that I just showed you, okay? So be very careful. Now, what if we have something like this? 8/10 plus 43 hundredths. Okay, so I'm going to follow that same step. I'm going to change my denominator of 10 and make it a denominator of 100, finding an equivalent fraction. So I have to multiply 10 times 10 to get the denominator of 100. Then I have to multiply 8 times 10, okay? So 8 times 10 is 80. 10 times 10 is 100. Now I can add them. 80 hundredths plus 43 hundredths. And what does that equal? Well, 80 plus 43, and if you get larger numbers, which you will see, line up your numbers to add them. Don't try to do it in your head because that's how we make mistakes. So if I add these, I get 123 over 100. I'm not going to leave that like that because when I look at this, what type of fraction is this? This is an improper fraction, so I need to change it to a mixed number. How do I do that? Do you remember? How do we change our improper fraction to a mixed number? We divide. We divide the numerator, 123, divided by the denominator, 100. How many times can 100 go into 123 without going over? And if I were to skip count by 100, I can see it's only one time. 1 times 100 is 100. 123 minus 100 gives me a remainder of 23. Now, what is this as my mixed number? Whatever's on top of the house is your whole number. Whatever's left over is your numerator. And your denominator never changes. So my answer here is not 123 over 100. It's 1 and 23 hundredths. Okay? And I have a little trick for that too. I'm going to show you another example and I'm going to show you the trick. Okay, so say we have something a little larger. Say we have 78 hundredths plus 9 tenths. Okay, so again, I can't add these. They have different denominators. I'm going to change the denominator of 10 to make it have a denominator of 100. So I'm going to multiply by 10 over 10. And that equals 90 hundredths. Plus now the 78 hundredths. Again, now we're talking about a little bit larger of numbers. So I'm going to add 78 plus 90. I'm going to do that on the side of my paper because I don't want to make a mistake by doing it in my head. So 9 plus 7 is 16. So I have 168. So my answer is 168 over 100. That's an improper fraction, so we need to change it to a mixed number, and we can do that by dividing. Another way that we can do it is when I look at this numerator here. This first digit here is a 1. That's going to be your whole number because 100 can go into 168 one time. That's your whole number. Okay, do you see that? That's a 1 here. That's your whole number. What are the other 2 digits that are here? I have 68. That's what's going to be left over out of 100. So I didn't actually have to go through all of that division to know 168 over 100 equals 1 and 68 hundredths. Okay? Now, what if you got an answer that was even bigger than that? What if you got an answer like 248 over 100? Okay, now that's an improper fraction, so I'm going to change it to a mixed number. I can divide. So I'm going to show you that division. 248, we divide the numerator by the denominator. So 100 cannot go into 2. 100 cannot go into 24. How many times can 100 go into 248 without going over? And if I skip count by 100, 300 is too much. It can go in 2 times. 2 times 100 is 200. 248 minus 200 is 48. So remember, the number on top of the house is your whole number. The number that's left over, your remainder, is your numerator. And the denominator never changes. It's going to stay 100. So your answer is not 248 over 100. It's 2 and 48 hundredths. Now I'm going to show you that trick, though. So again, that first number here is a 2. That's your whole number. What's left after that? These two numbers, 48, that's your numerator over 100. So I can see my answer here without actually doing all of that division, okay? So if I had 317 over 100. So same trick, same thing with this trick. What's my first digit here? A 3. That's your whole number. What are the other 2 digits left? 17. That's your numerator over 100. Okay? And if you did the division, you would get that same answer. Okay? Alrighty, that was it for today. If you have any other questions on adding fractions with denominators of 10 and 100, or changing them, the improper fractions, to a mixed number, private message me on Edmodo and I can help you a little further, okay? Don't forget for today, you have to do, after you watch this video, you have to do your FSA countdown page. Then you have to do your worksheet page on adding fractions with denominators of 10 and 100. And then you have to do your one Imagine math lesson on your FSA Review Week 4 pathway. Do not work in another pathway, okay? You're working on the FSA Review Week 4 pathway, okay? Don't forget, your quiz is today. So you're going to want to review what we have done this week before you take your quiz, okay? I have posted a separate video that is review for the quiz. So I am going over almost identical questions to what is on your quiz. So that should really be helpful for you so you can pass it the first time that you take it, okay? So watch that video as well, alrighty? And if you have any other questions, you can ask me before you take your quiz, okay? So you can private message me and ask me before you take your quiz. Alrighty, today's code word is going to be fraction, because we have done a lot of work this week on fractions. So that is your code word for today, okay? Don't forget to watch that other video, the review video, before you take your quiz. Your quiz needs to be completed by 3 o'clock today. And don't forget, we're giving dojo points for having everything turned in on time. So if you finish everything by 3 today, your quizzes, you're going to get a dojo point. If you have all your Imagine math lessons done by 3 o'clock today, you're getting another dojo point, okay? If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.